Hey, I'm Brian Van from SportbikeTrackGear.com. Today we're going to break down the Woodcraft 35mm rise adjustable angle clip-ons on our Kawasaki Ninja 400 Moto America race bike. Okay, before we dive into the install or I really show you what this angle adjustable stuff is all about, some things you need to know with this project. This is a race-specific set of clip-ons from Woodcraft. These are not intended to be used with OEM bodywork. You're going to have a lot of clearance issues. Depending on what type of race bodywork you're using on the track, odds are you're going to have clearance issues with that too, which can be addressed by simply trimming the bodywork. You can see what we've done here with the kit that's on the bike now. I've relieved this to be used with clip-ons that do ride a lot lower. You're going to have to do that. It's also important to note a steering stop is going to be required with this. We use the Norton Motorsports Ninja 400 specific steering stop. Works great on this bike. You can see we got an excellent end result, lots of adjustability from this product. Another important note, on the Ninja 400, it uses a Coffin style master cylinder. The cam that installs in the riser tower that allows you to get the adjustable angle adds thickness in this area too. With the Coffin style master, if you don't have a spacer, and Woodcraft sells it, that goes in between the master cylinder body and the clip-on bar, it's a little 7mm spacer. We have it on the website. I'll have a link in this product listing for you as well. If you don't have that, you won't be able to install a master, which would be a big problem. So make sure you look for that as well. What are these going to allow you to do? They're going to allow you to adjust the angle of the bar, right? Standard Woodcrafts are 7 degrees. This is going to allow you to alter that 5 degrees up or down and also change the sweep. When I come back, we're going to explain that a little bit deeper. Okay, you guys have probably already seen we installed a Woodcraft race-specific set of clip-ons on Max's Ninja 400 Moto America bike. That was a non-adjustable set. 1.5 rise, non-adjustable. You were able to alter the height by sliding it up and down on the fork tube. This product allows you to adjust the angle of the bar itself. You're able to adjust it so that instead of being at our standard 7-degree downward angle, this clip-on cuff, just like the 1.5 riser that we installed on the bike or their standard clip-ons, has a 7-degree downward angle built into the riser or the cuff. This insert, which is essentially, it's a cam. You can see how it varies in thickness from one side to the other. This allows you to change the angle of the bar by rotating this. If you have this cam positioned so that this is at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it is going to preserve the 7-degree downward angle. Won't change that at all, but what it will change is, for example, if you have it at 9 o'clock, it is going to position the bars 5 degrees further forward, right? It's going to turn them out a little bit. If you have it at 3 o'clock, it's going to sweep the bars back another 5 degrees. Realistically, you could make that change by simply loosening up your clip-on cuff and rotating it. So that in itself is not really big news. What is the big news, the big adjustment, is the ability to change the downward angle of the bar. Every rider is different, has different preferences. If you have a rider that prefers to run with even more downward angle, right, you're able to rotate the cam in such a way that you've now increased, and with this cam it's approximately 5 degrees difference, okay? Increase the downward angle by about 5 degrees. Say they like a flatter bar, you rotate this so this is going to be on the bottom now at 6 o'clock, and that is going to flatten it out by approximately 5 degrees. Remember, 7 is your reference point. That is the most common downward angle on any set of clip-ons. You can achieve 7 at either 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. You're able to alter that at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and of course everything in between is going to have a little bit of an impact on the angle, the downward angle of the bar itself. This just allows you the ability to tune the clip-ons at a much higher level than you could get with a standard set of clip-ons or a standard set of risers. Very important note here. On a bike like this one, the Ninja 400, that uses a Coffin style brake master cylinder. When you have everything installed, and this is going to make more sense as we move forward, when you have everything installed, if you have the bars in a position, anything outside of having that cam at 9 o'clock, right where the thinnest portion of this is all the way forward, you need to add a spacer that Woodcraft offers, sold separate, that is going to go in between the body of the master cylinder here and the clip-on bar itself. And I'm going to show you that real briefly right now, and then we'll focus on that more as we go through the installation. This is it. That's a 7mm spacer. They give you longer bolts. You will still use your OEM master cylinder clamp. Effectively what happens is this slides into position just like that. It's perfectly machined like everything else Woodcraft does. You're still able, obviously, to adjust the reach to the lever by using your adjustable lever, okay? The real reason anyone would be interested in installing this particular set of clip-ons on the Ninja 400, right? Your motivation for considering this kit versus the other kit that we showed you in the previous video for the race-specific stuff would be to alter that downward angle. If you're happy with the 7 degrees, run the 7 degrees and just get the race-specific set that we showed you, you're gonna be good to go, okay? If you'd like to try a flatter bar, or if you'd like to try a steeper angle, this is gonna be the kit for you. To begin the assembly, you wanna first find the clip-on cuff halves that have the R engraved into the bottom. We're gonna get those installed. And look at the notches they have up top here, the alignment marks. Pretty cool. Got a new little trick I'm gonna show you guys too to help maintain a nice and even gap between the two clip-on cuff halves. First thing we're gonna do is just kind of get the bolts in there, get those started. Controls are an area where you should be really particular, right, and do everything you can to achieve the most accurate end result. Once I have those threaded together like that, what I did is before the video, I kind of screwed around a little bit. I was mocking this up to get an idea of how these were going to go on here, so I looked like I knew what I was doing when I did this video. And, you know, I always really do strive to get a really good even gap between the two halves of the clip-ons where they come together. And I thought, you know what, let's go ahead and grab an Allen, right, and find one where when you have it even, is going to get you to that closest number. For this particular set, it was a 1.5 mil Allen wrench. So what I'm going to do is just kind of hold that in there so the flats are touching the two halves. I'm going to run these bolts down just by hand. This is going to give me a really nice starting position. 2 of the bolts are hard to reach once you have everything assembled. 2 of them are really easy to reach. So we're going to go ahead and do a little Allen wrench trick on the 2 that are more difficult to reach. And then we'll come over here and snug these down so we can assemble the riser onto the clip-on cuff. If you just want to kind of zoom in there a little bit on both sides, you can see the gap is really even. I think that's just kind of a cool little trick just to get you started. It's really important that those are as even as humanly possible. when you install your riser. This is machined, so the tolerance is pretty tight, and that's going to hold itself into position, like so. They do have a recommended torque spec for these fasteners. Oh, that was a lot. And they're also tapered seat, which is nice. The tapered seat stuff, there's a lot of surface area there, so you get a lot of mechanical grip. The torque spec they have recommended in the instructions is 24 foot-pounds for the larger two on the bottom, and 6 foot-pounds for the smaller. Kind of run through that with you on this side, and then on the other side, I'm not going to focus on that as much because it'd be pretty redundant. So run that one down until it seats itself. Quality of the Woodcraft stuff, I say this every time, it's great. Machining, super accurate. You know, Eric uses all top quality hardware. Excellent track record with that brand. It's a 5mm internal hex that we're using here. Having used the riser clip-ons previously, my experience has been that you know, these, you never really end up taking it apart here again unless you have one hell of a crash. And you know, we had a set that we installed on this Ninja. The first set that he ever came out with was actually one that was compatible with all forms of the race bodywork and the OE bodywork, and that's the one that we used for the longest time. Get this down to 6. And we rode it enough. We had a couple of crashes. Max had a couple of falls on it. I had one. And never did we ever have to revisit the connection between here. The fasteners never came loose. So it's typically a one and done kind of deal. Okay, now let's go ahead and grab one of the cams. Slide that in here. I'm going to use the bars from the other clip-on install that we did. I removed the bar end because we use a lever guard that requires removal of the bar end, so it can slide in here, and there's these two wedge halves that expand out. If you're going to use the Woodcraft lever guards, it's usually best to get their extended length bars, the XL bars. They're a little bit longer because the Woodcraft lever guard slides over the end of the clip-on tube itself by approximately about just a little over a ½ inch, and it clamps on the outside surface. In order to facilitate that, you do need longer bars. Go ahead and slide this one through here. Right there. And to start off, you know, what angle do we want to run? You know, we'll start off with, let's say, a +5 degree downward angle. It seems to be kind of the most interesting one, I think. So we'll start there. There are index marks on these, and what I want to do is I want to look underneath here and make sure that I've got it lined up so I'm able to get the other side at the exact same spot. Okay, so we want to install these with more of a downward angle. That's just something we want to try, okay? So I want to position the cam at 12 o'clock. It has all of these reference marks etched on it, and what you want to do is you want to make sure from side to side you're perfectly even. I counted from the back portion of the brake down to the fixed portion here of the riser tower, and 12 marks. Looks like it's going to put me right where I want to be, so that's what we're going to run with. Let's go ahead and get our bar slid into position. I like to run that so that the bar end is just outside of the end of the clip-on riser tower, or in this case it's going to be the cam. Now this we'll be able to go ahead and tighten up. Comparing this to the other risers, there are 2 fasteners used now. You probably wanted the additional clamping force to manage the cam, as well as the bar. You're not just holding the bar now, you have to sandwich the cam and the bar together. And there is a lot of surface area there too, so it really doesn't take a tremendous amount of torque to make sure that everything is going to be held in position. So our forward most bolts for the cuff. Rotate this backwards like so. Snug those just a little bit. You can reach the ones at the back quite easily. These up front here, if you want to come over here, Lucas, you can see what I'm doing. This is going to be a great opportunity. You can still reach these easily. Just put a little additional torque on them. You want to get them as even as you can. And then what I'll do is I'll loosen up the other 2 to get the bar into position as we continue to mock the controls up. I have a real sweet clip-on alignment tool. I took a measurement way back when we started this project, so I know the position that Max is already happy with. And having this alignment tool, I'll show you as we go through the video, really makes it super easy to get everything right back where your rider likes it in a pretty precise manner. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this. This is probably not going to be the permanent position. Just snug it up just a little bit so we can hold everything in place. Now, the master cylinder. And you can clearly see right here, right? Probably the easiest way to illustrate that. If I hold this flush against the bar and push in, it is contacting the riser, okay? What's happened here is having that cam in here, you've introduced this additional thickness in this area right here. Traditionally, that is the amount of thickness you're going to have between the bar and the outer edge of the riser tower itself. With that cam in position, and once again it's position dependent too, where you have that cam, you've added all that thickness and it just simply creates that conflict, which obviously you cannot have that. Before we deal with the master cylinder, we'll go ahead and just slide our throttle up on to the bike. What I like to do here is when we're building out the bar length, I like to start with the throttle, and I want to make sure that I leave just enough bar in between this that there is, under no circumstances will that throttle tube ever be able to contact the lever guard that we're running on this bike. The lever guard that we run mounts inside the clip-on bar itself, inside the tube. So I want to get it as close as I can, but under no circumstances can that ever contact that guard protector, because if it does, that could cause the throttle to stick. Obviously, a sticking throttle is it's a very dangerous situation. Last thing you want to do is put yourself or your rider in that position. Normally, when I do this, I'll take a Phillips screwdriver and I'll put just a thin film of grease inside the throttle tube where it contacts the clip-on bar itself. You don't want a lot of grease to where it could grab debris, but or dirt and hold it in there. Just a little thick film so you reduce the amount of friction in that area. We're not going to do that in this video because this bike is actually going to be taken all apart and we're going to build a completely new bike for next year. In this video, I just want to give you an idea of what this project looks like, and especially with a spacer. Give you a good idea of how this works out. Let's go ahead. Clamp for the master cylinder ready. Position the spacer there. Make sure the up arrow is facing up. Use the longer bolts that come with this adapter. When you tighten down the master with a coffin style, or actually any style master, you want to make sure that you tighten the upper bolt first, and that fully compresses and closes that gap off. Then you can go ahead and install the lower one and tighten it. There will still be a gap maintained at the bottom between the clamp and the body of the master cylinder itself. That is done intentionally to ensure the master cylinder is not going to be rotating on the handlebar. Okay, now we'll go ahead and install our start-stop switch. I'm able to get this into position by sliding the boot back on the Motion Pro Rev 2 throttle. Rotate that through. Let's get our screws in there. Depending on what throttle you're using, you know, that procedure may look just a little bit different, but I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory right there. This gets sandwiched in between the brake and the throttle housing. Our new bike should be in pretty soon. I ordered that thing a couple weeks ago, so we're looking forward to getting ready for the 2022 season. We've got great news we're excited to share. We're going to get that done here pretty soon. We're going to be growing our team a little bit for next year. Pretty excited about that. All right, snug that up. Pull this boot back over the top. There's our lever guard that we run on the bike. You know, and a lot of what you see here, you know, I'm not going to follow through 100% because this bike's not going to get ridden again. It's going to be taken all apart. We're going to start over, and plus we've got a lot of scratched up parts on here that we're not going to be using on our bike. There is the throttle side. We're pretty much good to go there. Now we're going to come over and get that clutch side assembled. Then we'll dial in the angle of the clip-ons and we'll close this off. Okay, essentially the same process as the other side. You can see these clip-on cuffs, they're etched with an L. Okay, you want to make sure you get those over here on the clutch side. We're going to use the same little trick to make sure we have a nice even gap. We actually have an offer for Max to ride in another class along with the Junior Cup bike. It's a pretty exciting class. A little age requirement thing coming up that I didn't expect for that particular class. I don't know if you guys can read between the lines and figure out what I'm talking about or not right now, but trying to sort that out right now. Not quite sure what's going to happen there, but we'll change our season a little bit. We're still doing Junior Cup no matter what we do. Fully committed there. I think we've left Max left a whole lot of meat on the bone last year. Showed a lot of promise and just didn't quite seal the deal. It'd be nice to go back out there this year and get that done. Okay. Little spacer trick. Go ahead and position this just like we did on the other side so we can get that riser tower installed. I'll say this a few times throughout this video. One of the biggest things that I've noticed when you do a clip-on install, after your first ride, it is so important to double check the torque on the clip-on cuff bolts. Now, I don't know what it is about those, but they just seem to always find a way, no matter how diligent you are when you tighten them up. And it's important to note, you never want to go bananas on these things, you know what I mean? It just seems like they're always, they just a touch loose. You get that first ride, first session, get the torque on the bars. And so I highly recommend, after that first ride, you double check all of your work, retorque those bolts. You're gonna find they're probably gonna be a little bit loose. Everything else should be okay, but just by nature, the way that all goes together, it's easy for it to be just the tiniest little bit loose. A little blue Loctite here. And then we'll do the same thing we did on the other side. I'm going to run this one down, the smallest of the three, just by hand. Just enough so it's seated. And then we'll torque the two larger ones down to the 24, and then the one up top to the 6. Now let's go ahead and let's get our cam into position. Set our bar up in. Rain light switch. Keyed up. Now we need to count down. Okay, cam's in the same spot. Get these torqued down nice and even. If we end up running these bars, this particular setup next year, I don't know if we're going to run this one or we're going to run the, just the 1.5-inch rise. I would probably, after the first ride, not only double check the torque on the clip-on cuffs, but I think I might come up here and just double check these just to see, because this would be my first experience with these. And I'd want to see if, like the clip-on cuff, these seem to need a little retorque. All right, slide the clutch perch out of the way. Let's get a screwdriver so we can tighten up rain light switch. Leave the rain light loose. Lock everything up, see where we're going to end up here. Probably somewhere around there, so the rain light can probably live right about there. Okay, let's go ahead and get our grip back on the handlebar. Okay, not going to safety wire that. Okay, try and get the bar or the levers fairly even though this is not going to be ridden. Torque that down. And when I come back, we'll have that clip-on alignment tool on the bike and we'll get these lined up. Okay, here we go. This is that clip-on alignment tool we picked up from this dude when we were out at Laguna Seca. A guy showed up just for the day, was walking around the pits, nice guy. This is a tool that he not only designed, he's an engineer, but he also manufactured this. It's a 3D printed piece, pretty cool. We've used it previously and I've already established a good baseline for where the kid likes his clip-ons, and this just allows you to get them back right where your rider, or you, if you're the rider, wants them positioned. Super easy. Like so. If you're interested in this tool, we don't sell it here, but you can go to GLS Motorsport. You can probably find that quick Google search, find that dude, and go ahead and grab yourself one. Now we'll go ahead and snug these up. Another important note, we're going to drive home again here. This set of clip-ons is race specific. You're not going to be able to use these with OEM bodywork. There will be clearance issues. You also will have to be using a steering stop, okay? On our bikes, we're using the Norton Motorsports Ninja 400 specific steering stop. If you do not use a steering stop, you're going to run into a position where the levers are absolutely going to be contacting the bodywork up at the front. Those clearance issues can also result in safety issues. That's the last thing anyone wants. With controls, they have to be perfect. Right? They don't have to be close, they have to be perfect. And when you're working through a project like this, never settle with any result that is not perfect. Okay, really important, once again, we're not riding the bike like this, we're just doing this for this video, so I'm not gonna, get super precise here. Steering stop, you wanna double check and make sure, like this body work here, I have cut out quite a bit to be able to use very low clip-ons. We've got these at that reduced angle, everything fits. We could run these like this, and this is going to be, 7 degrees plus 5 degrees, so approximately a 12-degree downward angle, which would be quite a bit. This is cool because it allows you to experiment and move them around and find a spot that's best for you. If you're going to run either set of these clip-ons that we've shown you, these Woodcraft race specific, you need to be ready to do some pretty serious bodywork trimming, okay? You can see what we did here on this kit. This has unfortunately been crashed on at this point, but I relieved it quite a bit back here in this area. I also took the OEM gauge holder. We're running that Spears Racing data acquisition system. I took that plastic piece that extended from here all the way back here, filled in here. I trimmed it all apart. There's some armor bodies on this bike right now, it's just what's on there. I saved these pieces because this bodywork kind of bolts to it. Really cut it out quite a bit. I relieved this a whole bunch up in here. Got plenty of clearance right now. Lots of options with these bars. Another great part from Eric over at Woodcraft. You know, if you guys don't know his history, this dude's a really successful racer. Still today, made a lot of money racing back in the AMA days, Hooter, Suzuki and stuff. Really accomplished as a rider, a designer, and a manufacturer. At this point, they make great stuff. If you have any questions, leave those in the comment section of this video. I answer all that stuff myself. I'm always here to help you get the right result from your next project.